There is a certain fear about the idea of subversion, the idea that people's true intentions are hidden behind a facade, while to the outside world, this person will be just another member of the group. In reality, they are a corrupting influence, a seducer among the ranks. While all beings of the night partake in subterfuge in one form or another, there is one clan of kindred that are the masters of it. They are known as the Ministry. Formerly known as the Followers of Set or the Setites, they have recently gone through some rebranding of late. See, one of the main things that defines them is their want for influence. More so than any other clan, they wish to manipulate and subvert groups while keeping this intention hidden. To form a cult within a location and to hide for as long as possible. While most clans will do this in some form, they tend to go, shall I say, mask off once this is achieved. But the Ministry almost never take it off, to the point where there are some kindred loyal to this group who have no idea who their true masters are. One of the main reasons for this rebranding is to actually help them with this endeavour. See, unlike most clans within the Camarilla who cling to tradition and hate new technology, the Ministry embraces the modern age. They use it as much as they can in order to sway people to their team, so to speak. In the modern era, you're not really going to find many young people willing to follow your group if you call yourself a cultist or a follower of Set. But if it's simply known as the Ministry, well, that does sound a lot nicer on the ear. Don't let this branding fool you, however. Like any other clan, they still hold to their ancient beliefs, and they do truly worship their Egyptian god Set. More on him later. They are still old-fashioned zealots and fanatics, at least the older ones are. They just try to aim to recruit a more modern audience. Religion is a powerful tool, yes, but changing one's initial beliefs takes time. It takes subversion and infiltration. And while this is happening, another minister will set out a small alcove or community centre where they help the vulnerable and needy, while another will try to influence the young, offering those who seek to rebel the many vices they want. Before you know it, almost half the city is eating out of their serpentine hands. With all this being said, you might think that they are in bad standing with the other factions, and you would be surprised to hear that in the modern Knights, that's not really the case anymore. While the Camarilla does not trust them, they don't shun them away either, and the Anarchs have foolishly let them in with open arms, and they serve a similar role to the Toreador within the Camarilla actually. I'm sure that dagger they're holding over their backs, however, won't come to bite them later. Of course, it's actually quite easy to spot them, more so than any other kindred, for they are often quite precise in who they pick to embrace. They have 3 strict candidates that are accepted and wanted among the clan. The first and foremost are people of Egyptian descent. The second are those who are wanted by another kindred. If a minister learns that a powerful Ventru wants to embrace one mortal, they might go out of their way to steal them. And the last one is a little weird and shows their true religious colours, for it is simply people with red hair. This is for one simple reason: it is believed that Set had red hair, and to them, this is a virtue. If one could not find an Egyptian to embrace, they would settle for one with red hair. Of course, their ideal candidate would be all 3 of these things at once. Now, I'd like to get into their history, and for the sake of fairness, I will mention the 2 different tellings of this story, and I will start with the Nodist scripture. Set was an antediluvian, one of the first to be made, a reclusant and rebellious figure who worshipped a destroyer god in secret, the great serpent Apep. He despised living in the shadows of others, and was one of the first to leave the fabled first city to head back to his homeland. Upon arriving back to his home, he found a new king had taken his place. Osiris, and so Set struck him down, only to later be defeated by his son Horus, where his followers saved him at the last moment, and he remains in hiding to this night. This is the Nodist retelling of his origin, and just like the Gangrel one, it is almost certainly fake. A later retelling to link in the origins along religious lines. But the Ministry tells the tale a little bit differently. For a start, they think Set truly was a god, and the battle between him, Osiris, and Horus truly did happen, and unfolded just like in Egyptian mythology. But instead of them defeating Set, they instead cursed him with vampirism, when he later went on and became the first vampire. He embraced others and started the clan as we know it, meaning that they are of a completely different bloodline than any other clan. Whether you believe in this story, however, really doesn't matter, for I suspect there is little truth in either of these tellings. They are both clear propaganda for one group or another, and so their origin should be treated dubiously. I, however, theorize that, like the Gangrel, I doubt they are descendants from Cain. Set being the first of their blood makes some sense to me. I do doubt, however, that he was truly a god. But to the clan as a whole's history, they are deeply tied to that of Egypt, a surprise to no one, I'm sure. For a long time, they were involved with only that country and its peoples, and cared little for the outside world unless it came to them. For a good example, during the war between Ventru-controlled Rome and Brujar-controlled Carthage, both sides wanted Egypt's support, as Egypt probably was able to change their fates during the battle, but they stood aside the whole conflict. This led to Rome being the final victor, and they wanted revenge on the Setites for their neutrality. Well, that's what the Ventru wanted. The Romans just thought it was a normal expansion, which in truth was partly inevitable for the growing power. After the long time under their boot, they realized that being isolationists would spell their death, and so sought to spread their influence globally. This is what led to their culture of subterfuge and infiltration. Publicly, the followers of Set have never left Egypt. It's their land and they want nothing to do with the outside world. However, the amount of money and other resources going into their personal wealth is more than a little suspicious, especially considering their prodigies just left the year before. They are also one of the few clans who were not present at the Convention of Thorns. One of the main reasons the Camarilla are so distrusting of them, because they were invited. Of course, they almost certainly had a spy or two present, so knew exactly what happened, but it was incredibly rude of them. We are getting to more recent events, where at one point the Ministry tried to join the Camarilla. A meeting place was chosen, a hotel if I'm not mistaken, where a bomb went off the night before, which resulted in the Camarilla refusing their administration. A lot of people question what truly happened that night. You'll find a lot of older kindred with certain opinions about this event. If you ask for my opinion, I don't think one party was involved in that explosion. I think multiple people were, and they had multiple reasons to do so. And that brings us to the modern Knights, with their recent rebranding. It seems that they are the only clan to truly embrace the modern era. While the Nosferatu are also tech-savvy, they have to hide their presence through hacking and firewalls. The ministers make public social media accounts, they fund media studios, and make as much as they can from them. Their goal is to have their faces known to everyone and their fingers in every pocket. They achieve this with their interesting use of their disciplines. They have usual, common ones, but their blood's unique origin allows them to use them quite differently. They have the same powers that you would use, but use them in ways you wouldn't. They have the disciplines of obfuscate, presence and protean. The power they probably use the most is presence, the ability to manipulate others emotionally, to have an aura or feeling being emitted around yourself. This can be used to make people love you or fear you. A power loved by the seducing types of kindred, to which the ministry use as a common tactic, more so than even the Toreador. I know one minister of the name of Delilah, not her real one obviously, who gained a lot of her control through the use of such powers. Her modus operandi was actually quite simple yet elegant. She would build up nightclubs and other buildings of the like, deliberately looking for young, rebellious adults, and she would feed their natural want to rebel. Those lost teens who wanted everything, sex, drugs, money, and just the ability to feel that they belong. She would offer them all of this at once, slowly influencing them in the process. She formed several cults within the world using this method, and it's quite useful, if a little seedy of a tactic. Another power within their possession is protean, the ability to change one's physical form, changing your body, and even shape-shifting. Again, they use this a lot like other clans, but with a slight yet obvious twist. While many clans will use the like to make their arms into claws, or change into bats or wolves, the followers of Set will grow venomous fangs, or turn into snakes and other reptiles. A colleague of mine uses a minister as a bodyguard, a very large man called Amond, with a speciality in protean. His main method, believe it or not, is turning partly into a crocodile during combat, sometimes fully if the situation calls for it. This was made the more impressive given his large stature, as it would translate into an even larger crocodile somehow. He's also a surprisingly polite individual, despite not speaking a word of English. And he's actually shunned by the ministry as a whole because he was embraced purely because of his hair colour, to which he then shaved off. They viewed this as a heresy and an insult, hilariously enough. He is actually hated by the clan at large. And lastly, they have the power of obfuscate, the ability to conceal oneself and mess with the senses, to become invisible or to be seen as a different person entirely. The ministry use this power well. While making yourself invisible is always useful, its main use in their arms is to hide identity. Like I said before, they often have a classic look due to who they embrace, so appearing as someone else to infiltrate the group is always going to come in handy. One minister I know uses this power perfectly. He is a Nubian man, one who has managed to infiltrate every group in the night you can think of, simply because he never uses the same face twice. Groups that would actually despise him simply because of how he looks were eating out of his hands. I tell you his name, but in truth it would in no way help you identify the man, for it would be one of thousands he has used, and just as many faces. The ministry are an interesting clan. While many have tied themselves to places and people throughout the world, few have spread beyond it while still fanatically tying themselves to their original home. A clan of corruptors with ulterior motives that are not as sinister as they could be. At the end of the day, they want to better their homeland. They care little for the outside world at large. Thank you for listening to my tales. I am the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It really would mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good day.